Okay, so almost everything is working at the moment, with the exception of the water. So when the player walks into the water, they're supposed to be able to kind of swim across the water, not dive like like a rock or something. But at the moment we're going under the water, so let's fix that. The issue for the character going under the water is basically this nav mesh. So if I click on this, and you can see that we've got this nav mesh agent, it will always apply some kind of gravity to the player. And if we just take a quick look at the script, the character controller motor script, we can see the check for water height simply switches the gravity off. So when we go below the water height, gravity becomes 0, so it's almost like we're floating across the water. Now the nav mesh agent is cancelling that out, so it's always applying gravity. So all we need to do basically is just switch the nav mesh agent on and off based on if we're on the water or not. Now the best way to do this, let's just type in water on here and click on this water plane 2. That's the water that covers the entire scene, and we're just simply going to give this a new tag. Okay, so let's click add a tag. Let's create a new tag, and we will call this one water. Alright, makes sense. And let's save that. Let's click back on the water plane 2 and let's tag it as water. And now what we need to do is go to component, physics, and give it a mesh collider. Okay. When you give it a mesh collider, what it does is it looks at the particular mesh, in this case the water plane, and it matches that mesh. If you were to give it a box collider, the box would be slightly bigger than the mesh, and I don't know, it's not as good really. If you have basic mesh like the water mesh, which is relatively basic, it's best to use this type of a collider. If obviously you've got a character that has thousands of polygons, probably don't use a mesh collider, because it has to match every polygon in that collider. Okay, great, so we've got this one. Now for some reason it's not allowing me to select trigger on this, which is not good, because obviously then all we're going to do is just basically walk over the top of the water. I mean, that might be an option if you want to go with that. I'm thinking that this mesh collider, then if it won't allow me to set it as a trigger, then I'm simply going to have to use a box collider. Ah, okay, it's because it already has a box collider attached to it. Right, so let me try removing that component. Nope, still can't. Okay, so component, physics, and box collider set to a trigger. Okay, I'm going to have to use that one basically because the mesh collider wouldn't allow me to set it to a trigger. Alright, good, so we've done that. Now we need to modify the script. Okay, the character controller script. So first of all, we need to tell Unity that we are using the Unity Engine AI. Okay, and then we need to create somewhere a private nav mesh agent that I will call nav as usual, and then we need a private bool that I will call AI active. You can call it whatever you want, equals true. Okay, so on the start then I need to make sure that the AI active is true to begin with. In fact, because it already is, we could leave that. It's entirely up to you, but I like to do it anyway. First of all, let's get the component nav mesh agent, and then AI active equals true. Okay, just to make sure that it is actually switched on when we begin. Okay, now somewhere along the way, might go all the way to the bottom. In fact, just above the IE enumerator, I think I'm going to do a void on trigger enter. There it is, that fills everything in. We're going to say if other dot game object dot compare tag, and that tag should be water. So in other words, if we walked into water, we're going to set AI active to false. And then we need to copy this entire section, Control and C, press enter a couple of times, paste it in, and we're going to say on trigger exit. And we're going to set AI active back to true again. Okay, now under the update is getting quite big, so this is all the update. Let's just put it underneath if stamina. This is fine, we'll just put it here. We're going to say if AI active is equal to the value of true, then nav.enabled equals true. Okay, so simply we switch it on. Let's copy this entire section, enter and paste, and we're going to say else here. So in other words, the exact opposite of that. If AI active is false, then we're going to set nav.enabled to false. We're simply going to switch it off, which will mean that we can now float on the top of the water. Okay, so that's it. That should fix all of our issues, and everything now should be working perfectly fine. I'm just going to go right down to the bottom. If it pauses like that, it's because the script is actually compiling, and it doesn't allow you to do anything while it's compiling. So I'm going to go to my sound section and just make sure I switch those all back on as well. Otherwise I might forget later.